Imagine this scenario. You are having a calm and rational discussion with someone, maybe about a movie, or a political event, or even just the fastest route to get home. You present a fact, you cite a source, you are logical. Yet the person across from you, they don't listen. They don't engage with your evidence. Instead, they escalate, they shift the goalposts, they interrupt, and they dismiss you with a certainty that borders on rage. Why? Why does the simple act of being wrong, or even potentially wrong, feel like a physical attack to some people? Why do they sacrifice relationships, peace, and even logic itself, just to win a meaningless debate? If you have ever been baffled or exhausted by the person who always needs to be right, this video is for you. Because here at The Inverse Mind, we don't just judge the behavior, we dissect the psychological and philosophical engine driving it. The truth is, this need to be right is not about intelligence, or facts, or even the topic itself. It is an emergency signal. It is a symptom of a much deeper and more fragile structure inside their minds. In this deep dive, we are going to expose the ego defense mechanisms driving this behavior, reveal the philosophical cost of intellectual arrogance, and give you the inverse mind principle for disarming this dynamic. Stay with me, because what we uncover will fundamentally change how you view your most argumentative relationships. Let's begin by defining the core psychological mechanism at play. The need to be right is, first and foremost, an ego defense emergency. It's not arrogance, it's fear. The person who always needs to be right sees their opinions, their beliefs, and their knowledge as an inseparable part of their very identity. In their mind, an error in judgment is not just a correction of a fact, it is a fundamental threat to their self-worth. The equation is simple: being wrong equals being a failure. This is deeply rooted in what psychologists call ego fusion. Their sense of self has become fused with their personal worldview. If that worldview collapses, if they admit fault, the ego feels like it is dissolving. The aggressive defense is simply a panic reflex to protect the self from annihilation. But the deeper question is, why is their ego so fragile in the first place? Why does it need a perpetual shield of absolute correctness? Often, this stems from childhood environments where mistakes were punished, or where self-worth was conditional on performance and obedience. The mind learned early that safety lay in never being caught in a position of uncertainty. However, this leads us to the crucial philosophical critique. The ancient Greeks understood this as intellectual pride. The Stoics viewed the true measure of a man not by the certainty of his beliefs, but by his willingness to revise them. Intellectual pride is the refusal to submit one's beliefs to the brutal but necessary test of evidence and dialectic. The always right person substitutes personal identity for objective truth, and that is a massive philosophical liability. To truly understand the trap, we must analyze the three specific cognitive mechanisms that lock a person into this rigid cycle. Mechanism 1. Cognitive dissonance avoidance. Cognitive dissonance is the immense mental discomfort experienced when holding two conflicting beliefs simultaneously. For most of us, when presented with facts that contradict our belief, we update the belief. For the always right person, the psychological cost of admitting the belief was wrong is too high. So, instead of updating the belief, they deploy energy to degrading the source of the conflicting fact. They attack your motive, your intelligence, or the integrity of your evidence. They don't hear your argument, they hear a threat to their mental stability. Mechanism 2. The Dunning-Kruger inversion. We are all familiar with the classic Dunning-Kruger effect. The less competent someone is in an area, the more confident they feel. But here is the inverse mind application. For the always right type, being right is the metric of competence itself. They believe the ability to win an argument, regardless of the facts, proves their superiority. They confuse aggressive certainty with actual wisdom. Their refusal to yield is not a sign of knowledge, It is a sign they have failed to move past the initial, overconfident learning stage. Mechanism 3. The identity fusion loop. This is the long-term cost. When a person continually defends an opinion as a part of their identity, they literally isolate themselves from growth. They only surround themselves with people, news sources, and communities that validate their existing views. They become mentally ossified. They are not engaging in learning, they are participating in a confirmation bias echo chamber that reinforces their fragile, self-constructed fortress of certainty. This loop makes it progressively harder to accept new information, thus fueling the cycle. Now we must move beyond the cognitive and address the profound relational and ethical cost. This is where the inverse mind dives into the shadow price. What is the person who always needs to be right truly hiding? We must assume that they are hiding a core, unacceptable feeling about themselves. This is the essence of Jungian shadow work. The relentless pursuit of external correctness is often a compensatory mechanism for deep, internalized feelings of intellectual shame or powerlessness. They are terrified of being perceived as ignorant, foolish, or out of control. By aggressively asserting dominance in trivial arguments, they are attempting to project an image of infallible strength to mask an internal deficit. They are using their rightness as a desperate attempt to regulate their own self-esteem. The cost is immense. In relationships, this behavior is a form of emotional abuse through intellectual dominance. They signal that your perspective, your feelings, and your reality are invalid. They are prioritizing the temporary preservation of their fragile ego over the long-term health, trust, and intimacy of the relationship. They become mental tyrants, and the people around them learn a tragic lesson: it is easier to be silent than to be truthful. The shadow price is loneliness. The always right person drives away anyone who challenges them, leaving them only with those who passively agree. They gain certainty, but they lose genuine connection, genuine intimacy, and the most vital ingredient for growth, the genuine challenge. If the problem is ego fusion and intellectual pride, the solution must be intellectual humility. This is not weakness, it is a philosophical superpower. It is the commitment to prioritize truth over comfort. Here is the inverse mind principle action plan: 3 rules to cultivate this power. Whether you are the person who needs to be right, or you are trying to navigate one. Rule 1. Separate the thought from the thinker. The moment a belief is challenged, practice the mental discipline of separating the idea from your identity. Tell yourself, my opinion is an object that can be tested, but my worth as a person is non-negotiable. This reframing removes the ego defense emergency. This allows you to treat the argument not as a threat, but as a constructive test. Rule 2. The 1% concession rule. In every single disagreement, set a goal to find and articulate at least 1% of the other person's argument that is valid. This practice forces you to listen actively, interrupts the automatic defense mechanism, and models the humility that earns genuine respect. It is not about losing. It is about demonstrating the cognitive flexibility of a truly strong mind. Rule 3. Embrace the Socratic privilege. Understand that the ability to change your mind in the face of compelling evidence is not a failure. It is a privilege. It is the highest form of intellectual freedom. When you are proven wrong, treat it not as a defeat, but as a shortcut to truth. Use this phrase: that is a powerful point. I was incorrect. Not with resentment, but with genuine gratitude. You have been gifted new knowledge without having to spend the time acquiring it yourself. The need to be right is a heavy chain. It shackles us to past beliefs, it isolates us from genuine connection, and it is entirely self-imposed. The inverse mind understands that true authority comes not from winning every argument, but from owning your capacity for learning, revision, and growth. The most powerful statement you can ever make in an argument is not, "I told you so," but, "Thank you for teaching me something I missed." This week, I challenge you to deploy the 1% concession rule in your next disagreement. Prioritize peace, curiosity, and growth over the fleeting satisfaction of intellectual victory. If you are ready to dismantle the psychological traps that hold you back and unlock a truly free and authentic mind, then subscribe to The Inverse Mind now. And please let me know in the comments, what is the most common trivial argument you are ready to give up, just for the sake of peace?